Welcome to the Wills Podcast. Today, my guest, Andrew James from K. James Construction and Comfort Zone. We had a great chat today. We're talking about family, the construction industry, leadership, self-development, and a lot more. Glad you could join. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, Andrew James, construction, insulation, some real estate. You got a few different things going on, but up until today, can you share a little bit about your career journey? Where have you been? Who do you know?
Well, starting to figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah?
It was always a struggle for me to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And I took a course in college in automotive engineering and figured out pretty quickly that was a desk job, and ended up in a business course. And that really spoke to me. The accounting, marketing, you dabbled in a little bit of everything to do with business.
Did you love cars? Is that why you ended up there? Or you were just...
Yeah. Well, when you're young and you're ambitious, you're thinking that you're going to go and design cars. You're thinking about what the car looks like and the body and this. And I was already signed up for the course, and a friend was telling me that their brother took a university level course for 4 years to work in the automotive industry, and he spent the previous 2 years designing the headlight for the Ford Focus. And to me, that didn't seem like what I wanted to do.
Impact, though.
Huge impact.
That's a key part.
There's so many of those left on the road now.
The Focus.
It's a legacy. So that was kind of that stands out as a turning point. And then once I got in there and saw that, you're in front of a computer at a desk, there's not much collaboration, there's not much. It just wasn't for me. So finished up the business course, framed houses for a little while, and returned to the family business, and saw that as a means to growing in the direction that I wanted to.
Did you work for any other construction companies, or?
Yeah, I did. I framed some houses in Calgary for a little while and tried that. And it's the same in any family business. You get to learn at every level. You start by sweeping the floors when you're too young to be there. And then you work up to, like yourself, you moved homes and for people for a long time. And you learn the business at a slower pace. You learn all of the intricacies of it, all of the ins and outs, and then you really understand it by the time you get to the level where you're operating it. You know everybody's job because you've done it.
Did you frame homes? Sorry, going back to this. Were you out there during the boom? Like my brother-in-law framed, I think, from like 2000, let's say 5 to 2008, when homes were like Calgary was blowing up. Were you out there at that time?
It was right at the start. I remember seeing gas at $1 for the first time. That happened when we were there. So the boom was coming on. I think we were only there for 9 months, and our apartment was, say, $900 when we got there, and when we left, they rented it out for $1,800. Like, the market just changes so quickly out there. It's really interesting to see. You don't want to be on the other side of it when it's coming down, but really cool market, boom and bust.
Yeah, it'll be interesting where, like, in all of what's going on with tariff and conversation with other countries, where oil will end up. Like, it's a topic for our federal election. It's a main point of topic for the tariffs, and globally, it'll be interesting to see where that one ends up.
It affects everything, and there's a lot of big players that control the market. I think our government's done one good thing by removing the carbon tax for personal. That'll help a little bit. I don't know if we'll see it at the pumps or not, but the fuel prices affect everything. Your business, all the food we consume, everything. Yeah.
So you moved back and get involved in the business. What were some of the things that you took on, or what did that progression look like of taking on more?
Yeah, you work up kind of through estimating and procurement, making sure things are arranged to site, end up being a project coordinator. And Dad and I had to find a place where he was content to retire out of the business. So that takes a bit of time and maneuvering on both sides, making sure that you're ready for that position. And he found a way to be happy in his retirement and keep himself very occupied, busy traveling, and it's good.
So was there a moment where you were convinced I could see myself here? Like, what was, what was the moment or time frame where you were like, I could picture doing this. I could picture, raising the bar, and yeah, what was that time? Because just for me, I came back and I wasn't like 100% sure. It was like I want to, I didn't tell the staff that. I'm like, hey, I'm just checking stuff out, but because that's not very like helpful messaging. But really, for Heidi and I, it's like we just made a very big, our very two different industries. We were ministering to students at the University of Guelph, and then we moved back. And but for me, it didn't take long. It was one of those things like in your heart that you knew within the first few months. I was surprised actually how quickly it came and how solid it felt for me. But for you, was there a moment where it was like, I think I'm in?
It took some time. And moving back from Calgary, I made a conscious decision to come back and rejoin the business. So I knew what that meant at the time. It was a career path and a permanent one, right? You're deciding to stay with the family business, and that's going to be your direction. I think with that, it's fairly easy to just do the status quo. But back to your marketing proposition, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? You need to continuously reinvent or grow and keep moving. And so that's more recent for us, that we've decided that the business needs to grow and change. So we look at that a lot differently than we even did a year ago.
Did you have like a sink or swim moment with like, wow, a whole bunch more responsibility was just passed on to me? How's this going to go? Did you have this, or was it actually like really a good kind of linear progression, or was there a sink or swim moment? Or maybe when you're a teenager working, how are these guys going to respect me? Am I going to last?
Yeah, you feel that throughout, I would say.
Yeah.
But the transition between Dad and I was long, so there was never any like terminus. The transition happened slowly. We had a 5-year plan that lasted 10 years, so yeah, it was easier that way, I suppose. And he kept himself busy with one kind of final project, building his own house, so that got him out of the office and occupied all of his time, so that made it a little bit easier.
So other than the auto design, was there anything like ever in your back pocket, like looking back 10 or 20 years ago, that you were like, well, if this doesn't work out, what would have been that next interest for you?
Good question. No idea.
Real estate.
Yeah. If you think about that, I could just go back to my childhood and like, I want to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't thought that since I was like 6. So
yeah, I was
backup plan.
I was police, military, and then once I realized that I actually love being on the water, it was Coast Guard.
Nice.
But the dark, big ocean scares me. Like in terms of like, I can't see myself doing too many maneuvers in the ocean. But
I can't see the bottom.
As long as I'm on the boat, I'm good. So what was that? What were some of the things you did to make sure that it was, like on your end of things, it was a win-win? Like you were working with your parents. I don't know if your mom was involved at all, but
yep, Mom was involved in the business.
So what was that
for the first 25 years?
What on your end? How did you make it a win-win to work with your parents?
Well, it was a family business, and you knew that if you didn't carry it on, then nobody would.
Just a good amount of expectation there, right?
Yeah, there's always some expectation. But obviously there's lots of reward in it too. Building homes for people is very rewarding. You're giving them, a home that they literally live in every day. It's the most expensive thing they'll probably ever buy. So there's a lot of trust that you're giving your clients, and that you have their support. So that it is a good feeling on all sides in that respect. Very rewarding.
Okay, so speaking of building a home, and this is a place where people are going to spend all their time, so it's got to like ergonomically make sense. There has to be a budget. You have to obviously build it to last. If you were to boil it down to a few different things, what's the essence of delivering a really good product? Like, what are the key things that have to be there to, sell a really good product?
Well, for us, it's always been fit and finish. Like we're trying to build it to the best quality standard that we possibly can. But then working with your builder and working through how the home is going to be used is an important part of it too. From placement of furniture to you know, where should you put your laundry pair? Does it make more sense to have it on the floor where all the bedrooms are? Do you really want it tucked away? And thinking about even something like Christmas, where if you got two people living in a house and that's the way it is 364 days a year, but then for one day you're going to have 20 or 30 people in there, you need to actually think about that, right? And there's some things that you can do based on, do you close this doorway off or do you leave it as opening? There's certain things that can be considered. So we go through with the client to talk about how they'll use the home.
So they're sitting down and you guys are discussing the plan.
Yeah, a lot of it. So some of it happens on the initial meetings and in development of the plan, and some of it happens on site when there's a few alterations that can be made or something comes up.
So in this environment, not just like January to March 2025, but in the last 5 years and maybe for the next 5 years, would you rather be in custom home building or plowing through a subdivision of townhomes? Like, what would you prefer?
Yeah, we'll always be a custom home builder. I think that's working directly with a client from the start is what we do. It's what we're good at.
Some of the so that was like, so home base for you is construction, and then what are some of the things that you've looked at and different directions you've gone from that home base?
Yeah, with anything, I guess you're trying to find some synergies with what you're good at and the contacts that you have. So real estate makes a lot of sense for us to be able to maintain the buildings and to have the contacts to help with that as well. So the real estate's definitely been a natural next step, and then we've added on that insulation piece where we've picked up a sub-trade basically and have them in-house. Have a little bit more control over the quality of that, and then try and pass that on to the that expectation on to the other builders and other customers that are willing to take you on.
So is that a common path that some contractors take, is acquiring subcontractors? Is that common?
That's a good question. Probably not. I can't think of another case of that offhand. I like the business side of it. We try to buy a business that we feel we can improve, and that was kind of the basis of that decision.
And is it what you expected?
Oh yeah, and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a challenge for sure. Any business is, and we've maintained similar margins to what we had previously with less overhead and less employees. I guess we sub out some of the work to specialized trades so that I think we've got a bat crew that is a sub trade, and they can just go through a house and make it perfect. It passes every time. And so it's basically like you're specializing. You're finding other trades and other people that you can work with that are top notch, the best that you can find. And
so on that, the term general contractor can mean different things to different
general.
people. It's a very general statement that you just made. So on the construction side of your business, what does it mean to be a general contractor in custom home building? Like, you want to find as many trades who are good at what they do and can deliver, or are you trying to be involved in as much as you guys can do? Like, what's the philosophy behind being the general on a custom home? Do as much as you can do, or partner with subcontractors who do a really good job and can deliver? Like, what's the philosophy? And I'm sure it changes over time.
But yeah, and different general contractors do it differently as well, right? So we definitely find as many sub trades who specialize and are at the top of their game. We work with as many of the best people that we can, and once we start working with them, we try to retain them as best we can. If you think about if you were a general contractor and you had one employee, if you expected that employee to do a foundation and be good at drywall and good at insulating and roofing, and then you want him to trim your house and install your kitchen, is that one guy going to be good at all those things?
I want the foundation guy doing doing the trim.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. So we try to find the best foundation guy that we can, and we have him do it.
Because they're precise.
Because they're precise. So you could be dealing with 30 different trades on any given project, and we sub out as much as we can, and we put the finishing touches on. Often siding and the exterior is what the client will see, and the same thing with trim on the inside is what you see. So
you guys side?
we do siding and we do trim,
Okay.
and we manage the projects.
Okay.
Typically.
Does that mean you have a mason? Because you got some of yours have stone on the front? No,
there's good masons.
Good masons. Yeah, that's
Good
another
masons,
one.
Yeah.
You don't want the mason putting on the board on the side.
No.
Two very different things.
Very different. Yeah. They wouldn't want to.
So you've got since I've met you, you've come into the business and you want to look at it differently, and you've got, I would say, I don't know if I've met as many second gen family business guys who are looking at it progressively, like how can we do this differently? So what got you started on this, on a journey of whether it was to have a coach, to get consulting help, to get into planning mode? Like a lot of times the cycle can actually just consume you, right? Finding good people, managing the cost of the build, and, figuring out what you're going to do next week versus next year. So how did you find yourself getting into, Andrew James working on himself, working on the business, or is that always been there in the background?
No, I'll answer it and then I'll ask you the same. But in a small town, we found that you have advisors, accountants, and lawyers, and you rely heavily on them. And then eventually you start to figure out that maybe you've outgrown them. Maybe they can't answer the questions the way that you want to. So then eventually I sought some form of a business coach or an advisor that was well above me, and that led me to a group that we're both in now. But
what was that point where you're like, I think I need some input?
Oh, it was a long time ago, and it was progressive. It was building and building, and I just didn't know what to do about it. But eventually, I knew that I needed a coach. I knew that I needed some form of advisor, and I always seeked it out more traditionally in like an accounting firm that was able to tell you, at least analyze it, do a pro forma on any given project so that you know how to move forward advantageously, whether it be tax or law. But then, there's limitations to that too if you want to create or think creatively about a business. Mm-hmm. And you go back to what Warren Buffett calls opportunity cost. If you go this direction, like if you come to an intersection right now and you can go forward or you can go right or left, one of those is going to be the best way to get to your destination. It might be the shortest, it might be the most profitable, but choosing wrong has a cost. Mm-hmm. And so at any given moment, we're typically analyzing 2 or 3 different opportunities, and more may come along. But to get back to the main question about a coach, having somebody that's seeing from outside of your business what you're doing in your business and providing some input on a regular basis is life-changing. Like it changes everything.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily like your dad would have had those accountants and those touch points with people, but you've probably done it a little bit differently that way, right? Than him?
Yep.
In terms of,
we did stay with those same firms for a number of years, and they, don't get me wrong, they served us well. But having moved on a little bit, like you definitely see the light with what other firms may have to offer, and you're also able to grow into it. You know that if you move to another level where you're a larger corporation or you're expanding into other markets, or like for you, if you're moving into a different country to operate, you may need a larger firm that has experience with those types of things.
Yeah.
So how did it progress for you?
Good question. I think so. I remember when I was going to school at Carleton, there was an opportunity to get a mentor, and I think I took advantage of that. Um, Heidi and I were involved in a there was a Christian club on campus called Power to Change, and that also had like a mentor. And I think I saw the value of that at a young age. I was really influenced by there was a few older guys at university that were just really helpful in life and experiences. So I was super open to the idea of getting help, I call it, or
Mm-hmm.
getting input.
Yep.
Um, I think too, there's a bit of something like within some of the church circles too, that the idea of getting input from somebody who's walked the road like a little bit more. So I think that part made it really easy. But I watched, this is interesting. Like I would say, um, my dad was, his strategy journey started like 30 years ago when his accountant told him to work on the business, not in the business. And he was part of United Van Lines, which was a bunch of family moving companies. And he had that peer group,
Mm-hmm.
which he spoke very highly of, and he loved them, and he's still like part of their lives. And so that was really important for him to have. So I watched my parents go through that. But when we applied for this program called Best Managed Companies, and it's Deloitte oversees it, and then there's a few different partners. They encouraged us to apply. We didn't get it the first year. In the second year, through some coaching and some different stuff, we were able to achieve it, and then we've kept it. And that the first year that we won, it came with one free year of a CEO form. Like the whole year was covered.
Yep.
And so my dad joined, and then I think he was part of it for, I'm going to say, 8 years. But I watched like my dad, who I would have already said was progressive and how he thinks about stuff. Like I watched him grow in his 60s, like. Which you don't like. It's usually not the time, the trajectory of when you start growing in terms of like reflection and strategy and getting lots of input, and so now knowing what he was leading on that group for was like, how do I make this transition successful? So like, I've met some of them and they're like, I've heard so much about you, because he's been able to have a group to talk to, about the succession in me, because who else would he, chat about? So, it's I've met three of them in person, and it's such a funny.
Oh, this is Jordi.
Yeah, because for years they've known about our journey without being at all involved in the business, and they've asked him questions, and it's similar to. So Andrew and I are part of Tech Canada, and we have the same coach, Matt LaFrance. Shout out Matt LaFrance, and he was part of that group. So you bring one of the parts of it is you bring a challenge in your business. So he was part of McKay CEO forums. Same idea. They bring in a guest speaker, and then they do some issue processing. So he was, he was processing some of those things about my transition, and the impact on his leadership team, and some things like that. So I really think that, and looking back on that time, he gave me a lot of room. I know you asked me about me, but he gave me a lot of room, and I think he did that because he had strong people to ask him questions like, what are the risks in allowing him to take on more, and like walk it through it in a structured way. So, I went back to school in 2022 for for an 18-month program, and I was part of the Ottawa chapter, part of this program, and it was phenomenal to be part of a group where nobody knew like the ins of my business, but I could talk about it.
Yep.
And when I was finished that, I 100% saw that hole. Like I was like, something's missing here. Something's missing. This is the regularity of talking with people who don't know the people in your business, but they are able to listen and facilitate some conversations about how to do things. And so then joining Tech has been absolutely what I thought it would be and more. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is a good continuation of your journey with your education.
Yeah. So a little bit about your family. Who's in the James crew?
Yeah, my wife Kelly, we've been married for 16 years, 15 years. I just have to remember in September. And we have 4 beautiful children, similar ages to yours, I believe, ranging from 8 to 14. And they all swim.
And like a swimming family, like how many pools would you have on site, in your property?
Oh yeah, there's 1.5.
Is the in-laws pool up and running yet?
No, I worked on it on the weekend.
Did you?
Yeah, it's
What
getting there.
what stage are you at?
Plumbing.
Plumbing?
Mhm.
I'd encourage you to sub that out
Yeah,
just to really
agreed.
focus on.
Our very good plumber, I couldn't convince him, so I'm gonna man that mission.
So for you, and it's probably varied over the last 14 years. So yes, Andrew and I have 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy. They're all currently the same ages. They're all in the same class, except your oldest is a first year at high school, grade 9,
Yeah.
and mine's in grade 8. So there's lots of touch points.
Yep. Lots of challenges, lots of blessings there.
So when you're not swimming, though, there's other stuff in your property going on. What else is going on in your
we
property?
do have a bit of a hobby farm and garden, so we keep a few chickens around for fresh eggs, which I should have brought you as a gift this morning.
Eggs?
But, yeah,
Yeah, we
lots
would
of
have
eggs.
received them warmly. I did pick up 3 dozen from my neighbor yesterday, so
Nice. Well, you have to listen to the birds, so that makes sense.
yeah, his roosters are there was 11 roosters at one point, and that was tough. But now
That's a lot of roosters.
there's one, and he's had a very quiet winter. So, do you guys have a rooster?
Just one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we invited him in.
So where did the passion for hobby farming come?
Well, I enjoy gardening. Kelly loves sheep especially, so it started with sheep, and now there's pigs and a rabbit and some other things.
And do things get added on kind of each year? New ideas and
Yeah, well, the flock of sheep is slowly growing. Yeah, we bought an old farmhouse, and it came with a barn. And when you have a barn, you have to fill it with something. So
yeah, you dream. You have a vision.
You dream big, yeah. And so having a few animals in there is better than a wedding venue or filling it with old cars or wood that you may get to in your retirement. So yeah, a few walking animals that make some compost for my garden. So it's the cycle of the hobby farm.
And is it just for James consumption or?
Yeah, they're mostly pets. They have names.
Gotcha.
No one's gonna eat them. They're pretty safe.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're safe. Yeah.
I thought you've had some go to slaughter.
One. Okay, we took one pig. Yep.
Oh, one pig. Okay.
But that was its intent from the start. So it was an
no
experiment.
No sheep have been slaughtered.
No sheep have died
Really?
at our farm. Well, for consumption.
Wow. Okay. So
They're
very
safe.
right. So the economics of the hobby farm are in great favor of the animals.
Yeah, the feed people love me.
Right. And your freezer is does not say lamb.
That's what Costco's for. Buy Canadian beef.
We can chat a little bit more about family, but I want to flip back to 2 construction things. So, so you and I are part of a group, and part of that group is making sure that we're chatting about AI and looking at its uses, and making sure that the CEO is positioned to make sure that they're a champion of it, that it's safe and wise to do so, and to be looking into it. So, when you look out at all the different layers of construction, what are some of the things you see happening right now?
Yeah, most of the on-site jobs, we feel are pretty safe. We've added a few under a few initiatives, like a CRM product that just helps a little bit with the client relationship. There's another software I was thinking, but it's not coming to me. So, AI is not going to take over tomorrow and start building houses or replacing the guys doing drywall on the site. That's going to take a number of years. So at this point, it's what happens in the office, and we're certainly aware of it. We're working with ChatGPT on a regular basis to just simplify some of the processes. If you want to read a legal document and break it down to summarize it, that saves a lot of time. If you want to polish an email so that you can just jot something down and generate a response, that saves a lot of time. So at this point, we're working mostly with ChatGPT, but yeah, we're aware and trying to stay on top of the trends also, I feel like printing and building houses with automations is a fairly slow process. I think a lot of that's going to happen in the materials spaces, that the materials we generated using some form of computerization or AI, and that they'll come to us for site. But yeah, we're working with it to just make sure we stay on top of it. But
Yeah.
how does it, what's the outlook for your business? How does it change things for you?
Yeah. So the big guys are deploying lots of different tools. DHL, I hear, is a leader in route management. So the ability to analyze all the routes, deliveries, size of the deliveries, frequency. And so there is a lot of data in supply chain.
Yep.
And it sounds like, so there's big investment this year for some of the big guys. So the big guys in our industry, they're called DSV, DHL, Kuehne+Nagel. These folks would have major CapEx expenditures happening to build something. And some of them are far along the way. But I'll give you an example. The empty van is I can't think of the metric right now, but it's something that says, like, of all the trucks moving around right now, what percentage are empty, meaning they don't have backhaul. So they have a primary delivery and they have no backhaul.
No return.
Right. And so if you look at the whole North American network, for example, is companies are always looking out for their best interest. So they don't want to take something at a really low value, and they really don't want to partner with everyone and give away stuff, and vice versa. So Uber Freight, for example, so Uber Freight is very large. It's a software and load tendering. And so they've said that they've actually reduced empty backhaul by maybe 5-10% through the use of data and analyzing data. And then DHL employs it on the warehouse end, in the inventory management side, and then on the route management fee. So if you have thousands of trucks out there, it's like what time of day and what route makes the most sense based on the just historical stuff. So
Yep.
supply chain companies, 3PL, 4PL companies have a lot of data to work with, and I think everyone's just trying to figure it out. For us, no huge uses yet, just some analysis, and but I have to, we got to keep that curiosity up. So we've got a solid ERP from the accounting side and on the warehouse management side, and our warehouse management system holds all the data going back, 25 years since we started with this WMS. So there's a lot of data there. So there'll be some projects to automate the cleanup of data and how we use it. So I think there'll be we'll work away at it, but I do feel that, like, good burden to make sure that I'm championing it versus just talking about it.
Yep.
Right. So after our last meeting, one of the things that I'd like to do is which is what you did with your partners, but take our leaders offsite and go through the assessment, look at the different tools, and start playing around with it. I think that's like my next step, to get some comfort there, have a place where people can ask those questions about privacy and functionality. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So I would see that happening in the next few months, just to keep to make sure we're moving forward.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not like, I don't feel an absolute panic. I think, though, this is different. I think the AI uses in business are different than when the internet started up. If people were saying, "Are you on the internet yet?" Like, people had, let's say a year or a few years before they were on the internet,
Yep.
their kids had to get them set up or whatever it is. I feel like this one's moving a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And you don't want to jump on a solution and make the wrong decision. So there's some waiting. It's like lots of case studies and just like learning what would make sense for us. I think the cost for some of the customized solutions is going to go down.
Yeah, it'll change. Yeah. And like you say, that it's all fairly new and it's changing so quickly. There are people that are moving in that understand that space, and they will bring tailored solutions to your data problem, and they will be able to solve that for you, and they will offer that as a service. And yeah, I don't think we're quite there where we need to jump in and try and develop your own AI to solve that problem.
Yeah.
But there's got to be tens of thousands of tools added every day that specialize in one thing or another.
Yeah, for sure. So I think positioning us to make sure we have someone looking at that will be that'll be important because I find it easy to get overwhelmed. Like I'm trying to do a little bit of listening to some podcasts and some different things, and I would say that this subject does still sound foreign. I've got the main acronyms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember they were moving pretty quick there for us the other week. The LMs and
Yeah, you're
so
writing down the acronyms.
I think I've got some of the main acronyms down, but it's definitely a different touch and feel than like design, like a warehouse and how a warehouse is laid out, and some more like traditional things that we're good at. It does feel like another language for sure when listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
So actually I had one more technology question. So when you look at all the materials and subcontractors, you probably get some industry news once in a while. What's the most like extreme examples of how technology or automation is impacting? So you're scrolling through your feed and it's sending you construction technology stuff. Like, what's one of the more extreme examples that you've heard out there of how a supplier, materials or service is using technology in your industry?
That's a good one. I feel like probably just that big disruption of being able to print houses is probably the most pressing one for us.
And what do you mean by that, print houses?
So like full scale 3D printing of houses, or at least the external envelope, is probably some of the biggest technology changes that are happening in the industry. So being able to take something to site, and I mean, there's limitations, right? Like you're not printing window glass or window frames. You're literally just basically printing the concrete on the outside. But there's lots of innovation in especially envelope products that happen every year, like the invention of the ICF, insulated concrete form, where you have foam on the outside and the inside and pour concrete down the middle.
Yeah.
Like that was 25 or 30 years ago, and that really changed a lot. But there's some barriers to that with costs. So I think as technology improves, that to be able to print more of the exterior of the house and not just the walls, and with taking into consideration climate, like you don't print houses here really, because you can't just put up a concrete wall and call it good. It needs to be well insulated, and there's a lot of other considerations for changing temperatures. But yeah, that's the one that we're kind of waiting for something to happen a little bit on. That is what does it look like if we're actually printing houses?
The guys just down the road, I got a tour. They build homes and they build walls and trusses, and we got a tour, and the plans go into the system, and then it projects a laser down, and then people start putting together these trusses at a quick speed. So I hadn't seen anything like that in the construction world till I did that tour.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so every day they're pumping out trusses and walls to spec, and it's probably good and bad. That technology seemed to move quickly, and then you get to site and there's probably changes, and then that feedback loop has to get back to the manufacturing, right? Because now you've got distance between manufacturing and being on site,
Mm-hmm.
and that feedback loop to make sure things are dialed in super precise.
Yeah, the way I look at that is, if you think about selling stuff on eBay,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to go and sell a C can on eBay, that's not going to work very well, because you need to move that C can from A to B wherever it gets sold. But if you sell, peanuts that are gold plated on eBay, those are going to be easy to move. You can easily ship them by any kind of freight or supplier. So the large products, like there's other logistics issues with trusses and with walls and assembling and storing them somewhere and moving them to site, and there's a lot of moving parts with that. So it's a tricky one. I'll just say there's not probably a whole lot of actual innovation going on there. We're just doing it faster.
Yeah.
We've modernized the process, so we're using lasers and we're cutting all the pieces and they move down the trolley. But you still have a very big warehouse footprint, and you have a very big yard, and materials come in, materials go out, lots of logistics, lots of moving parts.
But there's more assembly happening in a specialized environment than traditionally, right? Like a kitchen or walls or trusses, for example, right? Like there is specialization happening where more stuff is showing up, and it's hopefully just an installation and some minor tweaking than it used to be. Is that right? With the exception of drywall, electrical, that all need to be put in piece by piece or wire by wire, pipe by pipe.
Yeah, pre-assembled walls have been around, like factory built walls. They've been doing that for a really long time, and you don't usually do the wiring and insulation until they get to site, unless you're a prefabricated builder where you know where the electrical is going to go because you're building the same plan over and over again. So there's no change in spec. You just build that same wall assembly with the drywall on it, move it to site, and assemble it. Otherwise, I mean, you're basically just if you're building walls in a factory, yes, controlled environment, yes, you can stand the house up faster, but there's a cost to building it off-site and shipping it to site. You know, it's more bulky once it's assembled. Instead of a pile of studs, you've got a pile of walls, and they take up a whole truck instead of, like, you could ship a whole house full of worth of materials on probably 2 trucks. And if you build the boxes and all the big truck, if you pre-assemble all the pieces, you know, it might take 20. So there's a cost to that. Custom homes.
Yeah, it sounds like you're not buying pre-made walls and trusses.
Oh, my framer won't. He doesn't want to put them up, so.
I won't touch them. Random question. What's, like, historically, not necessarily just with your subtrades, but, like, what's the subtrade when they arrive to site? Watch out. Like, the so-and-so are here today. Stay back. Like, what are some of the subtrades that have, some nuances or unique?
You're going to get me in trouble.
No. This is general. I'm asking you. That's why I'm asking you general industry.
Used to be insulators, maybe. It's probably drywallers.
So you bought an insulation company to change the perception,
change the process and the perception,
quality,
better,
accuracy
for the world. Yeah, better for everybody. Drywallers probably. But by nature, you have to have the house completely prepared and clean. They're the only ones that are in there. They're there for a couple of weeks, so yeah, you have to roll out the red carpet.
Okay, give them room to work.
Yep.
We're moving big sheets here of
nobody else show up. Give them their space. So back to your question, your comment. You're saying you're taking your guys off-site. What do you do to get people outside of the box so that you can think about things differently? And how do you approach that in your own life with finding time and balance and finding some creative time? I mean, I did see you one day over at Starbucks sitting there by yourself. You got yourself into a different headspace. But what do you do for your people and for yourself to do that?
Okay, so the first part, I think if you prime your people well in advance and make sure that they know why we're doing it. So I think that's a big part. It's not like they don't want to hear the message is Jordi's making us use AI and AI is unsafe. Where are we going with this? So so I think the messaging is key, and the priming time is key. By the way, we'll see how this goes. I think, the other thing we did was, and we got this idea from our tech chair, was just inserting it a little bit here and there for management meetings. These are the capabilities. We're not saying this is what we're going to do, but we just have to stay up with technology. And I think the type of people we have in our business, everyone does agree with that. Then they have personal opinions about what that means. And then there's the professional in the work setting. It's like we're using an ERP that's on the back of Microsoft. Like there's a lot of structure there. So what does this mean? I think providing the environment of playing around with it and asking questions hopefully will be not disarming. What's the word? Take away some of the myths. But also, we may come out of that with like some of the same concerns. And I just feel that, like I said, going back to that, I do feel that burden that we have to get into exploration mode and curiosity mode, because our industry is moving very quickly, and there'll be huge advances. The huge advance from 2019 to, let's say, 2022 was every year our industry report came back and said everyone wants more data and visibility on it at all the different touch points in the supply chain.
For your customers?
Everywhere along the supply chain. If your organization, whatever piece that you have or piece that you play, if you can't provide data that helps both ends make decisions, you can become irrelevant. We've seen it a little bit. We're not so some of the big guys use data. We do use data, and we're figuring out how to use it better. So the second part of your question was
Finding downtime and creative space.
Yeah, I rank fairly low on creativity, but what I do need is I do need some time not in this office to do a little bit of reflection. And so what my reflection looks like, it can be all sorts of things. From a spiritual side, it can be writing out just where you're at, like emotionally, spiritually, mentally, just like a good snapshot of what's actually, how you're actually doing. But I've used it to walk myself through something that is, slightly frustrating, or like something that you're like, wow, I've given a lot of headspace to this topic or this issue. I need to kind of get this down so that it's easier then to release.
Recognize, that it's what it's doing.
Yeah. And so sometimes, like, I've had some great mentors who have given me all sorts of tools, but just like a super simple one is what's actually true about me in this situation, what's true in the company or in whether it's family or whatever, what's actually true. And then like go through your worst case scenario if you want to, if that's helpful. And then ask yourself at the end of the worst case scenario, okay, and then what would you do? And so you've kind of, not demystifying, can't think of the word, but you are kind of you've gone through that option and then you've already thought about how you would respond. And that scenario's 99.9% chance not happening, but you've worked it up a little bit in your mind. So I think it's a place for just some mental health stuff. Spiritual mental health has been good. My goal would be to do a little bit of writing, probably 2 to 3 times a week, and sometimes it's 5 lines, and then sometimes it's 2 pages. And it's slow for me. It slows my mind down just enough. The act of writing versus thinking of something keeps you on the thought longer, and it slows down your thoughts because you have to match the speed of your pen. So it'll actually help you with a little bit more concrete thoughts. So yeah, that's something that I've found helpful. So it's usually working through issues. And then sometimes it's just like straight gratitude because you know that you need it. So you're just writing out some things that have gone well.
Gratitude exercise.
Yeah. Speaking of gone well, what are you most proud of in some of the leadership and changes that you've been able to bring to the table and help the team? Like I would say in the last 10 years, what are some of the things that you're like, few key things you're proud of?
Yeah. I mean, look back at where we were 10 years ago versus now. I mean, we had 4 employees kind of at the maximum. And we had a town hall 2 weeks ago. And there was 2 absent, but there was 19 people there. And so looking around that room, what I told them is what I'll tell you, is that it's the people that we have that make the product. Our clients they will almost every time tell you about how great this person was or that person was, or even the sub trades too. All the people that you work with are really great in some way. Like they're both good at what they do, but they're also good people. And so we feel very lucky that we've been able to surround ourselves with that type of people, and that's made the biggest difference, I would say, and that it affects and supports so many people's lives is also rewarding in a lot of ways.
That's an awesome reflection, and especially when it's sincere. Not saying that people are insincere with those sorts of comments, but if you can reflect and give examples to your team of like, here's the client, here's what they're actually saying. We do add value here, and we're going to continue to add value, and we're going to continue to grow.
It's something that I'm learning as growing as a leader, that they, if you're not talking to your people about what they're doing or what they're going to do next, what the year looks like, and like you say, the reasons, the feedback from the clients, then they're working in the dark, and it's hard to stay motivated, I think, when you don't know what's ahead. Yeah, you're not looking ahead, you're not looking back, you're just in the moment. And yeah, it's hard to stay put when you're only living for the moment.
Biggest influence or mentor for you?
Yeah, I might get stumped on that one. There's been lots.
You can choose one particular season
no one's
to.
self-made, right? There's always a lot of really great influences in someone's life, and I've been lucky enough to have a lot of really great contributors. Your parents are always, top of that list, because that's where you start and that's where you get your kind of baseline from.
Yeah.
And if you're driven and you're seeking something better all the time, that comes from somewhere. It comes from your upbringing. And what about you?
One particular guy in high school, he had just had charisma and leadership like you wouldn't believe. And he taught me just to walk up to someone and say hi. And
you're very good at that.
And thanks. He was an exceptional person. Some coaches, my dad though, we managed to have a lot of good openness in the conversation, and he led by example, and he like really chose his battles with me. So he played more of a mentor than a father, especially when I was an adult. He probably saw like if I try and control this person, it won't go well. So he kind of switched to friend mentor, and it worked because I did respect him. And there's a few key moments, in my own spiritual or leadership journey. I saw he kind of drew a line, and he did it in a really nice way to say, there is another step here, there is another level here, and it's just so definitely that. And there was others along the way. I had one guy at university that really, I don't know, he cared for me, asked me questions. I think that's where I learned to ask questions and enjoy that, to learn about someone versus always talking about yourself. And there's a few others along the way. So we both have daughters, and and fathering daughters is no joke. It's an awesome opportunity. Advice out there for fathers of daughters.
Well, there's a lot to it. The one thing that I was really surprised about when we had 2 kids and we had a third one on the way, and they're like, which one are they going to be like? Are they going to be like this one, or are they going to be like this one? And then they arrive, and then they're completely different. And then the fourth, again, like completely different. Like personality, direction, drive, everything about them is so very different. Yeah. And so you have to manage that. And like you say, you can't lead with a stick, right? You need to provide some form of a carrot. Mentoring is a little bit different. You're not actually giving a carrot, but it's a give and take relationship, right? So yeah, as far as daughters, you never feel like you're doing the best you can, right? It doesn't matter. But I think there's an important part there where you go from when a kid grows, or a child grows, they go from seeking and needing their parents' input and validation, and moving over to seeking and needing friends' validation. So I think the input that you give them as a parent prior to that, probably plays a pretty key role in the people that they choose to get feedback from. But that, I think it's important to pay attention to that transition and when it happens, and realize that you're not, they're not modeling after you anymore. And so you need to change gears at that point. And then with the girls, I feel like it's also a very critical time in their life when they're figuring out who they are. Mm-hmm. And they're awfully lucky if they've got good friends, which our kids do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we both have a teen. We have a preteen, and we've got a kid, right? In terms of the 3 different stages we're at for our 3 daughters. I would agree with that. If somebody gave me the advice to pursue your daughter when they may not be particularly warm towards you, but keep pursuing them in an own way, not in an overwhelming way, but I've seen that been really helpful advice when you want to be like, fine, have your space, and I'll have my space. Yeah. Obviously space is good, but also pursuing them even in those like different zones. So
yeah, it changes. One thing, like our oldest, we were starting to drift apart, and you could feel that. And that was part of that transition for her. but we just didn't see eye to eye. We weren't on the same page, and I took her to see some spring opener games in Florida, just the two of us.
Yeah.
And that really changed our relationship.
Yeah.
Just having a little bit of time together. And I mean, you don't have to travel to Florida to do it, right? You can take your daughter out, just her, for a dinner or for breakfast or for whatever. Just go and sit somewhere together. Just make sure that you spend some time knowing them.
Yeah.
I think that's been kind of a lesson that I've figured out that's one that works really well.
So just out of curiosity, how old was she at that time?
So it was 3 years ago. So she was 11.
Okay. So when
going on 12.
So same story with my daughter. Turning point was when I took her to 3 or 4 of her volleyball tournaments that year. Yeah. And that was a turning point for us. An awesome turning point. Yeah.
You're supporting them.
Yeah. Supporting and time. Yeah.
Yeah. And time together in the car or wherever.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, I admire you watching you as a father and managing the different things there. I like hearing about the business, and you're taking a construction company that you're proud of, and you're also we're also applying stuff that we're learning from our peers who are in very different industries, and you're like sifting it through. And what I find is you're very, very patient. Like, you're curious about a number of things, but you're not like overwhelming your company with 100 different things. And I have to learn from patient people, because I'm not always as patient, or I wouldn't describe myself that way. But I think when you told me in my driveway that you were part of this CEO group, I was like, man, that is progressive, because you have to justify, there's a cost to it. So you have to justify that and the time away, all things that go against your industry. It's like, what, you're going to spend a whole day, a month away from this is construction. You need to work.
Yeah,
you need to be
there.
You need to be
hammer.
In the office, on site, and so I think you've kind of disrupted in your own the regular way of doing things, and you're trying to look at things differently, but also keeping family, like, I watch you in your relationship with your wife, and these are these priority pieces where you could just invest everything into James and growing the business and get super into it, but you're
under your desk.
Sleep under your desk on the manufacturing floor, exactly. But have you slept at the office ever?
No.
I've had 2 naps on that couch.
Yeah, but you've got a couch. That's good. Perfect.
Anyways,
no sleep couch.
Anyways, awesome chatting today, man.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, thanks for your time.